What a day. Coming up here.
Hold this.
All I want to do is, go to a Sox game.
Yeah. A cocktail?
A cocktail. Thank you all for coming. This is really the last appearance I have on what is a very short promotional spin for my book. I got to go back to work on this job that I have normally, and the writing the book was a real experience because I was working at the same time, and the first year that I was under contract to write the book, I wrote nothing. I thought about it a lot. I wrote a lot of notes actually, and I had a lot of conversations with people. We taped a lot of interviews with people. We transcribed those things, but I didn't really write anything in terms of pages or outlines for the book until 1 year into it. And then I really stepped on the gas a little bit in the spring of last year, and we wrote the book. My writing partner, Mark Tabb, and I am sorry he's not here. Mark, who's one of the greatest guys I've ever met, married to his wife, has 3 beautiful children, lives in Knightstown, Indiana, for people who are older, where they shot the movie Hoosiers with Gene Hackman. And Mark, who I met through my brother Stephen, who wrote a book. Mark is a former evangelical minister who now is a pastor in a church in his hometown. And he and my brother wrote my brother Stephen's books, his books about his journey and his life. But I had a very, I think it goes without saying, I had a very tough time inside divorce courtrooms in Los Angeles, and it was really very draining. I was someone who there was never any question about my love of my child or my parenting skills before I got in a room with a lot of high-priced lawyers. I was married to a woman who used to turn to me and say things to me like, "I'm so glad you're her father." And then all that got turned up on its ear once I got out of it, and once I was divorced. She seemed to change her mind about that, shall we say. And it led to something that was, I can make light of it, because that's just easier to do with a bunch of people that I don't know well, but privately, and as the book is the chance for me to tell people really how tough this was. It was really tough. It was really tough. It's like, as I say, there's an instinct that most people have, men and women. We tend to think that men and women approach parenting differently, have different roles in parenting, and they do. A mother is a mother, there's no denying that, and only men who are fools deny the fact that motherhood is such a powerful thing in the first several years of a child's life. But as a child grows up, they want to include both their parents in terms of understanding their identity. As a child gets older, as a child is young from birth to through infancy to when it goes to school, they need their mothers. But as they get older, they need their mothers less and want both their parents more. It's less about need than want. We turn our children over to society to raise them, to schools and so forth, and churches and organizations, and we spend less of our time with our children. And children, I think, at that point, need relationships with both their parents. I joke when I say this, but I mean it seriously. God designed it where children would have 2 parents, normally, typically. They don't have 3 parents, because that would be more opinions than one person could bear, quite frankly. But you have 2 people, and you have 2 points of view, some of which hopefully both parents share. That's why they got together in the first place, because they had some common view of the world. And I think that children need to know both their parents. I think that the courts and the system we have now are a system that abuse a very fundamental rule for both men and women, because not only men are the victims of parental alienation, men and women are the victims of this inside this system. A growing number of men are winning primary custody, if not sole custody, of their children. A growing number of men are learning how to play this game that is played in American courtrooms. And I think that, as I've said before, you have your typical man or woman in our society. You say to them that your child is on the other side of a 10-foot concrete wall, and you can have them if you can get to them. Most people would start chewing their way through that wall to access their child. Most men and women, they'd start chewing. if they had no other means of getting through there. And the courts know this. The courts abuse that and take advantage of it. They know that you're going to do whatever it takes to access your child. Normal, healthy people. Many men walk away from their responsibilities in divorce, and some women too. But the system is a bad system. It's a system designed to line the pockets of a bunch of avaricious people and corrupt, ignorant judges, cowardly judges. The judges are the worst cowards you've ever met in your lifetime. You've never met a bigger coward than a family law judge in Los Angeles, trust me, who just stand by and watch all this inequity go on, and they can stop it. They have the power to stop it. They do nothing. They do nothing. They just let the lawyers run the show. It's tough. I just came from Harvard Law School, where a woman who is a friend of mine and a contributor to my book, Professor Jeannie Suk from Harvard Law School, who's here with me somewhere. Jeannie was kind enough to let me come to Harvard again to speak to her students. And I said to them, you know, not all lawyers are bad. I mean, what's better for our society than a good lawyer? What's better for our society than people who know the law and study hard? It's a lot to learn. And they get these law degrees and they go out into the world to really help people navigate those waters of the legal system, which is very convoluted. And there's nothing more important in our society than a good lawyer. But it seems that in the family law system, it's really, really rampant, this problem. I wish I had had more time to write a more lengthy book, a more comprehensive book that could help people. I mean, I have advice in there for people about how you get divorced and what you should avoid and what you should do. And I had a woman who's a family therapist in San Francisco earlier this week. I was at a book program there at the Commonwealth Club, and the woman was a family therapist and a local radio host, I believe, or television host. And she said to me, she said, you put a tremendous amount of emphasis on helping people have a more fair and more collaborative divorce. She said, I'd like to see society design programs and counseling models to help people stay married. And I said, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. I mean, I'm all in favor of marriage. Don't think from this book that I think that marriage is some a sucker's game. I think marriage is great. And when marriage works, it's great. I wish I could find somebody to marry right now. That would be heaven. But you know what I mean? That's another natural inclination people have. I mean, you want to find somebody you can share your life with. That's great. But I think that we need to be realistic that in a complex society, in a society where women have more independence, and it's a good thing, where women have the ability to go out and they can take care of themselves now and get jobs and make money, and where society doesn't frown on a woman who isn't married and having children. More and more, a woman sits there and says, I don't think I want to have kids. People in our society go, okay, I get it. That's your choice. You know, live and let live. We have become more of a live and let live attitude in our society now than we've ever had. And more women say, I really don't want to have a kid. We don't judge those women now. You know, 20, 30 years ago, you didn't want to get married and have kids. People were like, what's the matter with Debbie?
Hey.
You know? So is your name Debbie? I apologize. What's the matter with Helen? Anyone? So I'm going to finish now, but you know, it's a complicated situation. You know, where more and more people are choosing not to get married, and those people who are getting married, more and more people of those marriages are failing, and people are finding it not only easier but more acceptable to live alone or to just cohabitate with people in a relationship outside of some legal bond that you create. That's cool. What I'm saying is that, but when you get married, that's a legal contract. That's a legal procedure that puts you in the grips of a legal system.